Good Friday morning to you, my friends. Bible Billy O calling out to you before I got to go in for work. And I just wanted to share with anybody who cares to listen today. I had a supernatural day yesterday, and I'm still trying to process it. How many know many times what's going on in the physical realm is underpinned by something going on in the spiritual realm? In fact, I believe it's always something going on in the spirit realm, even more real than this earth suit we're wearing right here. Something old A.W. Tozer taught me a long time ago. He said, everything begins and ends with God. Well, in John chapter 4, verse 24, I believe, says, God is spirit, and to worship him in truth and in spirit. And if everything begins with God and ends with God, it has a spiritual underpinning to it. And so yesterday there was just so many glimpses of God, I couldn't count them. And I'm still trying to figure out. There was a supernatural provision made. There was just from the sun going up to the sun setting, so many blessings. And I was really trying to pursue God, and I think he blessed me for that. But I think he just blesses sometimes because it's his character to do so. Pastor Armstead was in 1 Kings 17 today, and I love this. The prophet Elijah, that God knows he's going to be in a place where he could be in harm's way. He's just proclaimed there'll be no rain, and rain was the life source for the kingdom there. And he told Elijah to just depart and turn eastward and hide himself by the brook Cherith, which was east of the Jordan, and you'll drink from the brook. And I've commanded the ravens to feed you there. Supernatural provision. Even with the ravens, God had brought him edible meat and gave him water when no one else had water at the time. And so there was supernatural provision being made, and we need to start to look with our spiritual senses more these days of what's really going on. I mean, I don't have to tell you, there's an all-out war going on, and you see it in the media. In fact, TV has been called programming for a reason. There's an agenda. If you didn't already know it, you got to be careful how much we allow in they call them our ear gates, our eye gates. And then recognize that what we see in the physical isn't always what's really going on in the spiritual. You know, the Bible tells us to walk by faith, not by sight. Jesus said, those who have ears, let them hear. There's a spiritual ear, a spiritual eye. And I had some glimpses yesterday of the spirit realm. God is spirit, and it all originates from him. I wanted to encourage somebody today, if you're fearful, if you're wondering where is the next provision going to come from, if you're wondering what does it look like for me and my family and our jobs, I just want to submit to you that you can, like the deer in Psalm 42, after running hard through the woods. I love Psalm 42. It says, as a deer pants. And that's a picture of being breathless and thirsty. And he's looking for a source of water. As the deer pants for the water brook, so my soul ought to pant for you. It's the way we ought to be hungering and thirsting for God. And yesterday I was sensing that, and he provided. Can't even go into all the details right now, but just supernaturally. And I think of Joshua and how he won the battle in Jericho. It's interesting how in chapter 6 of Joshua, Jericho was a very spiritual representation of something God needed to conquer. And he has Joshua, who's a picture of Jesus. In fact, his name, Joshua, is the same name as Jesus in the Old Testament. He says, see what the Lord's telling you. How many times do we get caught saying that to people? You see what I'm saying? You see what I'm saying? God is saying, see, I have given Jericho into your hands. He already proclaimed that Joshua was going to win this battle before they even went into battle. And that's something that as believers, I think we need to get our arms around today, is that we don't fight for a victory, we fight from a position of victory. Again, we're talking about spiritual things. Where are you positioned right now in Christ? Where is it that all your help comes from? We lift our eyes up to the hills of God, and we know our help comes from the Lord of heaven and earth. There is a very real enemy to our soul. You can mark it down, and he will distract you, and he will try to throw all of the stuff we see in the news at us so that we'll say, where is justice? When's this all going to end? The second wave, perhaps, of the Rona, I need to be fearful, and I'm saying you should be prudent, but you need to know in whom it is that you've put your trust. And Ephesians is the last place I just want to land today. I've been there a lot lately, and I know it's Ephesians 6. It talks about battle stance and the armor of God and the spiritual weapons that we have, because our war is not against flesh and blood. It's not against the people in the news or the people that we run across in our daily life. Try to ask yourself, what's really going on here? What's going on in the spirit? Because he says, be strong in the Lord, put on the whole armor of God, that you may be able to stand against the schemes of the devil. And in verse 12, chapter 6, for we do not wrestle, we don't fight against flesh and blood, people, but against rulers, against authorities, against the cosmic powers over this present darkness. He's lifting the veil here, and he's saying that there's a hierarchy in the spirit realm, and especially on this earth, and it's one of the reasons God's allowed us to stay here. By the way, God's never in any hurry to teach us something. He could take 40 years with the Israelites, giving them object lessons by day and by night. He took over 100 years with Noah in preparing the ark. He's not in a hurry. In fact, if somebody who represents a spiritual leadership in your life is saying, you need to do this and you need to do it now, it's probably not of God, because God just is not in a hurry. And I don't want to say he doesn't urge us sometimes and keep us from harm, sounding an alarm, but more often than not, God is saying, wait a minute, before you react, what's really going on here? And so when you're attacked physically, emotionally, spiritually, ask yourself, what's really going on behind the eyeballs here? It could be that somebody is kind of a puppet being used right now by a spiritual stronghold. This present darkness, this spiritual foes of evil in heavenly places. Therefore, take on the whole armor of God, that you'll be able to withstand in the evil day. Having done all, stand firm. I want to encourage you to stand firm today. There's so many object lessons God's trying to teach us. His principles never change. His applications do. Someone sowed a seed by faith into my life yesterday, and I'm praying about how I'm going to reciprocate. There's reconciliation being made. Long, ancient strongholds are being torn down, and we need to be alert and aware. That brook Cherith that God provided for Elijah, I thought was interesting. I looked up what the word Cherith means, and it means cut. It's from the root for a word that is the same word when someone cuts a covenant. Blood brothers used to cut on their hand, and they put their hands together as if to say, now this mingling of our blood, it's telling you, I have a pact with you. I have a league with you. Maybe it's where we got our handshaking from. It's saying, my word is my bond. We can't do much of handshaking these days, can we? That's interesting. Well, the brook was a cut. It was God reminding the prophet of God, I've made a covenant with you. I'm going to provide for you, and I'm going to sustain you. And when this brook dries up, that's another spiritual sign. It'll be time for you to move along. And he sends him on to Zarephath, where there's a widow who's going to provide for him in his next journey. And the Lord sometimes allows brooks to dry up where he's placed us. It's sometimes his lack of provision that he's showing you, well, you maybe need to leave this job. Maybe it's time to move on to some other place. And he's never in a hurry, but he does provide along the way. Be aware of our inward senses today as much as the outward. Ask God to show you in the Spirit what's really going on. Open our spiritual eyes. Open the eyes of our heart today, Lord, that we can see you at work. Open our spiritual ears so that, like Elijah, we can hear and see what it is that you're about to tell us. We just love you today, Lord, and we want to thank you for another day that you've made. I pray you go before us. I pray you go before all of the people that are listening right now. Give them a good and godly day. I do call them blessed, and I know you do as well. And for now, this will be Bible Bill signing off. Have a supernatural day. Bye-bye.